We're live.
Oh god!
Thank goodness it worked.
Every time it pops up and says you're live, I'm like,
Yeah. It's
we
always,
did it.
Yay, us.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode here of the Wish You Were a Beer Show. Thank you for stopping by as always. I am Daniel. This is Tiffany. We're here every week. Unfortunately, Phil will not be joining us tonight. Or if you don't care for Phil, fortunately, Phil will not be joining us tonight.
Really depends on your perspective.
It's all about perspective, I find.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with the show, this is a weekly show that we do. It's a live beer show. We're typically talking about different beers, new beers, things that we find interesting. This past month, we've been doing all about hops, so individual hops. So if you're interested in learning on anything hop related, go back and catch all of our past episodes from this month. You can find all those at wishyouwereabeershow.com. We've got a good catalog of shows we've done in the past, as well as planned upcoming shows, allegedly.
Yes.
Yes. I've already had my fill. Well done, Jack. Well done. If you see down at the bottom of the page, that is all of our social medias there as well. So if you don't already follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, any of those places where you get your social media, make sure you follow along with us. That catalogs all of our individual beers we have as separate parties and different events that we get to go to and some of the fun we get to have along the way.
Follow our journey.
Oh, God. That is the most internet thing you've ever said out loud.
I actually don't think
Follow
it is.
my journey.
It's unfortunate that it probably isn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
I wish that was the most internet thing I've ever said. But
it's probably not.
It's probably not. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I've said some dumb things before.
On the internet.
On the internet.
On the internet, that's true.
About the internet, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's really a litany of things.
I just cracked this beer and it's very full. So if you have
Go
anything
ahead.
you'd like to say, I'll be there.
I didn't, but that's fine.
Really on the spot.
Hold on, Abby. I was reading that. Phil is gonna miss the episode with the brewer, some of the best labels in the game.
Oh, this is so true.
So true.
So true.
And yeah, to that we do have a guest tonight. It is Logan, who is the head brewer over at Oozlefinch Beers and Blending and the Nost Brewing project. So we're going to be bringing him in here in a little bit to talk about the experimental hops, and it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, so like I said, we've been doing all hop variations throughout the month and different individual hops and getting some history on them. And tonight we're going to be talking about experimental hops, which are fun because
they're baby hops.
They don't have names. They're not in heavy rotation. So when you find a beer that's been brewed with experimental hops, chances are you're going to get some flavor profiles and some things out of it that you may not be familiar with, which is a lot of fun, especially if you're us and you drink a lot of beer. It's fun to come across a different beer or a different hop flavor or profile than what you normally get at a standard brewery.
Or when you look at the can, you're like, I have no idea what this hop is.
This is very true.
And that is really fun because then you're sitting there Googling, trying to figure it out.
I don't Google stuff. I just assume I know everything about it.
Nope, I Google everything. If I don't Google something at least once a day, I've died.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Because you have so much stuff on your phone.
I do.
I could look at it all day. I have so much stuff on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're here for hours.
I could be in here for hours.
Stupid shit.
If you've been keeping up on the show with any regularity, we are going to start it off like we normally do with a little bit of beer news. So this is a portion of the show where we typically talk about things that are in the beer industry, beer adjacent industry that are prevalent or relevant at least to what's going on within those both worlds. Today, it's definitely beer adjacent. It's
definitely.
Not even really a news story when you think about it.
But it is because we have a platform and unfortunately for you all, you're here.
We get to do whatever we want.
So
today is Leap Day. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Bonus day.
Yeah, it's a bonus day. So today's the 29th. We only get it every 4 years. And 4 years ago on Leap Day, whilst having some beers, this one proposed to me.
I did.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier, and I'm not sure if it's the 4-year anniversary of her proposing or if it's the 1-year anniversary since it was done on Leap Day.
Yeah, so poll is open.
Poll is open. The polls are open. I'm sure 3% will show up, just like the rest of the fucking country. I'm sorry. That's not what this show is about. We're not about the
If
politics.
you're an independent, I don't give a shit. I need you to pick a damn side. There is no third party vote.
Right.
No. Yeah, I did propose. So every man who has ever proposed, the amount of nervousness that is involved in that is a legitimate thing. It was absolute terrifying, and I already knew he was going to say yes, but I still was like, my hands have never been this sweaty in my entire life.
Yeah, they have.
They were pretty bad.
Oh, no, you're right.
But yeah, so cute.
And it's also, if you're unfamiliar with that tradition in the world of proposing, typically leap day is when women propose to men historically.
Yes, it goes back to like the 5th century or something of basically priests were like, if your man isn't going to make a move, go for it. This is your day.
Here's your one day every
Pretty
4
much.
years where you get to make a decision for yourself.
In America, women couldn't own property or have their own bank account until the 70s, 60s.
Sure. I'm not a historian. I drink a lot of beer.
It's recent history. So the fact that we were allowed to have a day where we could propose is a pretty big deal that early on. So
I'm glad we celebrated.
Yeah. So anyway, I celebrated.
Yeah, so that's
nod to the past traditions.
Literally our beer news.
That's it.
Every leap year is going to be an exciting February 29th for us because it was a special day for us. And we went back to some of the places where we first drank beer together.
Correct.
Throughout the entirety of the day before she proposed. So it was a lot of fun. We got to go to places that we went on some of our first dates.
Yes.
Have some beers we had on our first dates, and it was really special. So
good, because I planned it for a really long time.
Boy.
But you know what's even cooler?
I have no
Where
idea.
did we go afterwards?
Afterward?
Yeah. We went to Oozlefinch.
The same night?
Yeah, we went to Oozlefinch.
I don't remember that.
I remember.
You were driving? Yeah, you were driving. Never mind. Yeah, we went to Oozlefinch. It was a blast.
Yeah, no, we went to Oozlefinch and because it was on the way home.
It was on the way home because we were coming back. Yeah, that's true. You're right, actually. No, I do remember that. Sorry.
Wow.
I drink a lot of beer.
Yeah, he was apparently really nervous.
Obviously. Down on him.
Yeah. Wow. But no, I was driving because I had the whole master plan.
Yes.
I had labeled in envelopes with pictures and hints. It was like a scavenger hunt.
Right, I agree. It's the second year of the proposal, but the actual, again, we're not going to keep up with all that. It's just leap year's easy. We know that's when it happens.
If someone would like to keep track of this, remind me.
Someone would start a Google Calendar. That would be nice.
Yeah.
All right. Enough narcissistic bullshit. We're very happy, and I apologize to everyone who isn't.
One day. Maybe you too.
No, tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tonight, as we mentioned earlier, we are going to be talking about experimental hops, and our good friend Logan, who is the head brewer at Oozlefinch and over at Nost Brewing Project. It's been a brewery in our area for a long time, and we've been lucky enough to be pretty close with a lot of folks over there over the years and get to spend a fair amount of time with them, both in the brewery and outside of the brewery. So I'm excited to talk with Logan. We're going to play, I guess, a thing that Phil made.
It's a
but
special guest.
Who cares? He's not even here. So, but we'll roll it. And then after we roll that, Logan, that's your cue. How it works.
Hello.
That was the most Forrest Gump wave ever. Hey, y'all.
I didn't know that about y'all. That's really interesting. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm glad that you were.
You will be the one person on the internet that doesn't shit all over that. So thank you.
Wait, this is not beer news.
Exactly. Well, again, Logan, thank you for stopping by. We've known each other for a while, and I think
really sorry.
Yeah, really. I apologize. One.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
That Jack said. At least we're on the same page. One of the things I do want to do that we haven't done yet, that I've talked with Jack about it. We've talked about it as well. I want to find the pictures from the Nost soft opening.
Oh my God.
Because there's a couch picture that has everyone in it from like, yeah, exactly.
There's glitter.
There's glitter fucking everywhere. It's amazing. When I find that picture, I'm going to put it on a shirt.
Absolutely.
Okay, I sort of needed your permission more than most
Because obviously the
Yeah.
glitter was yours.
because the glitter was yours. The pose is awful.
Naturally.
So I
It's
got to
very-
make sure you're comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Full send on that.
I love it. And one thing I think that I've gotten some questions about in the past when it comes to Oozlefinch specifically. What's the beers and blending portion of Oozlefinch? I know that's kind of off topic of what we're going to be talking about, but I have heard that question a fair amount of times, and I don't always have the right answer.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great question, and we get it a lot more than I'd like to because we need to do better about educating people about it. But really, the blending aspect of our name just comes to our love for barrel aging beer. A lot of times, our barrel aged beers that we release are blends. It's very, very rare that we will do a single barrel release, and when we do, we make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So the blending aspect is just to like show that we really love mixed fermentation beer and are going to continue putting out mixed fermentation beer as long as I'm there. So yeah, that's really what it boils down to is the barrel program.
Yeah, which I'm always excited about because I think for people that drink beer, not just to drink beer,
Right.
the mixed fermentation aspect of drinking beer is always one of the more fun aspects because it is such a wild process and the end product can be so different from what you think it's going to be, and you almost don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I know you know what you're going to get if you're good at it, but
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit of a roll of the dice, and to be honest with you, it's 95% of the reason that I got into beer at all. I really enjoyed drinking it, but I never really kind of caught the bug of loving brewing until I realized the potential for mixed fermentation stuff. And I'm a little bit of a mushroom nerd, and I was doing a lot of like the lab practices at home that comes with mycology, and it kind of like very easily converted over to growing up yeast in a lab setting or a mixed culture or what have you. It was a very, very close jump to be able to just move over to that. It's really more of a hobby than anything else, but yeah, that's what really opened my eyes to what could be beer.
so you were selling drugs before you started brewing. Well, you
Yeah,
said mushroom game. Like,
I mean,
come
people-
on.
I mean, gourmet mushrooms. Yeah.
Okay, I don't eat mushrooms unless I'm going to a concert. So let's be honest with each other. Do people eat mushrooms
I
on
love
food?
mushrooms.
I'm just kidding.
I love mushrooms.
They're
so
fantastic, and you can, yeah, big fan.
They're delicious. Daniel's not a fan. I put them in things, and I apologize when I do. And I said they're big enough you can pick them out.
I'm an adult. I'll eat shit.
Well, you eat shit?
You eat shit for breakfast?
You don't like the taste of dirt?
I love the taste of dirt. You know what I do for a living. It's
That's fair. That's fair.
So now you
He actually
mentioned
got his fill of dirt.
yeah, got my fill of dirt.
Oh my God.
How long have you, and I actually don't know this answer. I've known you for a long time now, but how long have you actually been brewing? I know it
So
seems
actually-
ridiculous.
Yeah, I actually started brewing in 2020. So I didn't really have to quarantine at all. I was working night shift at the shipyard and just had a lot of free time during the day. So I started making mead with one of my neighbors at the time. And it was maybe the most disgusting shit I've ever had. It was really fun. So the basis of it is I wanted to understand fermentation specifically, more so than the overall beer production process. And I felt that, I mean, mead is primarily water and honey, and beer is the whole world of malt. So it seemed a little bit more a little overwhelming. And so I decided to go with mead and start to understand the basics of fermentation a little bit more, and eventually kind of moved into a all grain brew in a bag setup on my stove after about 6 months of making mead. And that whole time, it was really just to like prep me to reach out to Oozlefinch, honestly.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to like make it my career, and I was bothering Rachel, the previous head brewer at Oozlefinch, and she finally, after about 9 months, let me join the team part-time. And I was pretty adamant about my passion for it, so it was kind of difficult for her to not let me explore that more. So I just kept doing that, and back in 2022, I was able to take over the production.
Yeah, which is really crazy, man, because I've known Rachel for a long time as well. We've had her on the show in the past as well. And I remember when she left to take another opportunity, and I saw it come across somewhere that you had taken over. I was like, holy shit.
I was like, wow, good for him.
Like, yeah,
man.
that's
Like,
crazy. Like
It was definitely surreal.
in a good way, not like that's crazy. Like, there's no way that bastard could be doing that.
He's so underqualified. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Right after I said that, I was like, that came across that way.
No, I didn't take it as such.
Okay, good.
I'm pretty self-aware. I do not have any professional qualifications, but I spend all of my free time learning. So that's really what it boiled down to. Is I didn't stop learning,
which is a beautiful thing. Which is why we specifically wanted to talk to you tonight in regards to the experimental hops, because
you're obviously experimental brewing.
Yeah, I mean it's it really is. It's a good fit based off of y'all's brand and knowing you and what you want to do and what you like to do. So when we talk about experimental hops, because again on the show we've already covered Galaxy, we've covered Idaho 7, we did the Grungeist hop, like a lot of these big name brands, so to speak, which is basically what they are now. Right. Big name brands. What qualifies something as an experimental hop?
I mean, I don't know the dictionary definition of
right,
it, but the way that I classify it are just hops that are going through the process of being experimented with by brewers before they get a name. So it's the hops that are the farmers or whoever is cross breeding these varietals are experimenting just like we are as brewers, and seeing what comes out of it. Oftentimes it's an educated guess and think, oh, this could be an interesting concept, and then we'll try this. And if they feel good enough about it, they'll open it up to breweries to start using it in their beers. Because at the end of the day, a hop can perform really well in the field for the farmers and smell and look really nice and what have you. But if it doesn't taste and smell good in the finished product, then it's not something that we're ever going to use. So it's usually like an 8 to 11 year process of getting a name. That's the average. Of course, there's some short, some longer, but generally speaking, it's a pretty long, drawn out process to make sure that these hops are consistent enough for commercial breweries and have everything that, or at least have something that a brewer would want to use that hop for.
Yeah, even if it's not consistent enough across the board, it's something consistent enough for a brewery if it fits that brand or if it fits that, that beer specifically, that they're going to produce large enough to make it worth their while.
Yeah, and it's super common for hops to, even after they're named, go through very subtle consistency changes over time. I mean, Chinook is a perfect example. It's been a hop that has been named for years and years, and just within, at least to my knowledge, the past couple of years, that hop being grown in other areas and different harvesting times is creating very different results when it comes to the sensory analysis of them and the acid content.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and you hit the nail on the head, which is like a weird process that I think when you just drink a beer, or even if you're familiar with breweries like we are, and you see a lot of the behind the curtain, so to speak, of how things are being done, it's an interesting idea to think about two completely different parts of the world getting together and experimenting. So I think about like the agricultural end of it, of like a farmer experimenting with a plant that he kind of wants to sell to a brewery who's kind of not sure if they like it. and they're working together to come up with like, well, it didn't work well here, and he goes back and farms
Or
differently. Yeah, correct.
Or they. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
2022.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't
Fuck.
fucking gender norm me on this one. I'm using broad terms.
No,
I don't care
get
who
what you're
farms.
getting at. Of like, you've got all these different
Yeah.
farmers who are, growing all these different hops, only usually female plants, because that is
Right.
what produces the actual cones.
Yep.
And so they're taking the male, which is simply just the
Drinking bourbon while learning about hops. That's how you know you're living.
cheers to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so they're taking the males that they use for their breeding programs with, hey, we like this flavor profile and we like this flavor profile. Let's just put them together and see what happens. And,
Yeah.
and to your point, just the naming process takes 8 to 11 years, but actually being like wildly available, it can take 15.
Yeah.
And that's where you get like this weird market for hops, because you have new hops that not only are difficult to supply, so obviously that will drive the price up.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's kind of become this, with the naming thing of hops, like this hype aspect to names of hops and varieties of hops. And it's really kind of fascinating to me, honestly. Like, obviously hype exists within beer and other industries, but for something like the hop industry to have hype driving sales behind specific varieties, it's pretty absurd.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy,
Because
actually.
you want to entice the like educated beer drinkers to look for these hops, but then you also want to make sure that you're driving the purchase of the hops from the breweries and even home brewers. So
Yeah.
you're trying to like really like market across multiple different like levels and platforms. So yeah, I mean, hype works. It is. We've been trying to do it with the show for years.
But I'm a terrible hype man.
Is what
Now,
it is. I'm not much of one
We only
myself.
go live once a week. You got to tune in live.
You gotta catch me at the bowling alley is what it boils down to.
Not lately.
Gotta
So
go back to
right. My question would be, and this is kind of just thinking about the process of brewing. And so, a lot of people are using like pelletized versions of hops in some capacity. You do get some, some wet hopping where it's like the full hop, everything. Are all these variations available with an experimental hop? Like, can you get it pelletized? Is it always going to be like a fresh hop because it's not widely distributed yet?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't have a lot of experience. What I would imagine happens is in the early days of it being experimented with, especially if it's a smaller farm that doesn't have access to a pelletizer or any kind of like commercial hop equipment.
Yeah.
I would imagine that it's primarily available through whole cone or wet hop.
Yeah.
But all the experimental hops that I've worked with have been pelletized. The main reason for that is the biggest companies that are kind of pushing the envelope on these hop breeding programs are the big hop companies. So they have all this commercial equipment available to them that if they wanted to pelletize them and make them available for brewers en masse, I mean, that's what has to happen. The majority of brewers in the world, or at least in America right now, either are not equipped or not comfortable working with whole cone hops. So at the end of the day, in order to get more of this experimental variety in brewers' hands, they have to pelletize it at the end of the day.
That makes sense. And if the machinery is already there, if you're already a big enough person to be pushing that out there, why not? Because I think historically most of your breweries, especially like I say your smaller breweries, are not massively produced.
Your craft.
Basically. Your craft
in general.
They're working with pellets most of the time. Don't get me wrong. You'll get like a wet hopped variation. It's usually a small batch. It's not going to be like a mass produced beer. Like nobody's got the space and time for that.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Did you lose it?
I did.
I don't know what you were getting at.
I remember. It's back. It's come back.
We're
to
both
visit.
somewhat sick. It's fine. It's totally fine.
So I do want to talk about an experimental hop because we've had this beer before. But it's out of the Nost Brewing project. It's the Reawakened. So it's the Gratsky beer. You did use an experimental hop for this.
Yeah,
And
partially.
I'm interested in the experimental hop process of, so you're going to make this beer, right? I'm going to make a Gratsky beer for beer drinkers. Like, this is, nobody coming in is going to be like, whatever, that's my fucking jam. Right? This is for beer drinkers.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, let's not get ourselves here.
No, you're 100% yeah.
So when you're coming up with the profile of this beer and you're starting to put things together, where does an experimental hop come into play there? Is this a hop you've used elsewhere? Was it something that you found or was brought to you of like, try this?
Yeah, so the Reawakened specifically, it's a smoked wheat beer, first of all. It's a Polish style that's kind of had a resurgence over the past couple of years, hence the name Reawakened. But the main reason so I used the experimental hop HBC 472. It's
rolls off the tongue, doesn't
right.
it?
Yeah, it's just eloquent. Yeah. It's not one that's been really at the forefront of experimental hop conversations because it's not your stereotypical hazy IPA hop. A lot of times nowadays in the industry, the things that are pushing the experimental hops are hazy IPAs. And a lot of times that's going to be hops that are fruity, citrusy, tropical, whatever.
Whatever.
But what I really found interesting about this one is it was described as oaky, bourbon barrels, and coconut.
Interesting.
And thinking about that in something that, I mean, if you think about when you really break those down, you're really talking about vanilla, which is like in bourbon barrels and oak. Once you char them, vanillin is the actual compound. And coconut is obviously a little bit more creamy. And I mean, it has like some tropicality to it, but when I think of fruitiness, coconut is not what I think of.
No.
So I thought that would be a really interesting concept on a beer that is smoky and would potentially kind of change that a little bit. And I hadn't really worked with this hop very much. Rachel, the previous head brewer from Oozlefinch, was actually the person that suggested it could be interesting to use in other things. And actually, I take that back. I had used it in other mixed fermentation beers, but I'd never used it in a dry hop setting before. And that's actually the majority of where I use that in the Grodziskie is a dry hop, a very like light 0.5 pound per barrel. I didn't want to like make it hoppy or anything. I just wanted to potentially enhance some of the things that were already in the beer. And at the end of the day, I didn't really get that flavor profile out of it that Yakima Chief Hops had been advertising for the oak and bourbon barrels. I can kind of see what they were getting at when it comes to using it in a whirlpool setting, like hot side, just a little bit lower temperature, which is very common for hazy IPAs. But in the dry hop, I got a lot more of like a lemon character out of it, which is a lot more understandable when it comes to like sensory stuff that a hop would bring to the table. It's very common for it to be like citrusy. So it wasn't that much of a surprise. I didn't think it was just going to like taste like a barrel aged beer all of a sudden. But it was an interesting concept that I wanted to experiment with. And at the end of the day, that's the point of the hop to begin with. And honestly, I kind of think that brewers in general, at least from my perspective, should kind of go into experimenting with experimental hops without even looking at the sensory of them that's been done and kind of make your own conclusions about it, so that it's not like a bias or anything. So.
And I think that's an interesting statement because I do think there are like a bias in a lot of situations to a specific flavor profile or what you think is going to happen or how you think it's going to work. And I think that's a fun portion of experimental hops of like, Oh yeah, like coconut and oak and grape. Oh, I didn't get any of that,
Right.
which is fun, but
I think
still,
there's some in there.
yeah, I do get a little bit of the oakiness out of it.
Yeah.
But some of that I could be
Could also be the style.
misidentifying.
There's a lot going on in that beer. So yeah,
Yeah.
even for me, it's very difficult to like say, oh, this is definitely coming from the hops, or
Right.
this is really just the oak smoked wheat, because that's what it is. It's 100% oak smoked wheat. So, I mean, who's to say where the oak's coming from?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be that guy, but I'll be that guy. Um, where the hell does the smoke come from in the beer?
Yeah, so I specific. I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah.
We are not adding liquid smoke to it.
Sometimes you get that from a beer, like when it's really heavy smoked. That's kind of what it tastes like sometimes.
I mean, brewers have done it. I've heard people in our tap room talk about that beer and say, "Oh, they just add liquid smoke to it," and it makes me want to.
You say you shut your mouth.
Something very not good, but I lost my train of thought.
Where does the smoke come from in the
Yeah,
beer?
so the malt, I specifically use Weirmann oak smoked malt, which is a maltster out of Germany.
Okay.
They're known for making really consistent quality malt. So I wanted to use that, and the way that they get the smoke, and goes for just about every smoked malt, they dry it over smoke. So in this case, they lit oak on fire and dried the malt out over the top of that, as opposed to a sensory, like a sensory vacuum. Like if they're drying their malt, typically you're not going to get any kind of character from just like a pale ale malt, other than just a very light character from the drying. But when it comes to like a smoked malt, you're getting a lot of character from it, especially depending on the process that the maltster has. Like one oak smoked wheat from Weirmann is not going to be the same as an oak smoked wheat from a maltster in America.
Right.
So it really probably the most variety right now that I can think of when it comes to malt would be in the smoked malt realm, honestly.
That's interesting because it's such a weird science project, because I've had a ton of smoked beers at this point at varying levels of what they used or didn't use, and it's crazy to think that, like, depending on what level of smoke you're going for, and it comes from a lot of that malt like characteristic, and how much of that grain bill is this or this or that, and it's just a science project I don't understand, Logan. I'm not.
It's fascinating for sure.
I'm waiting for you to bring up your bullet points. Tiffany took very specific bullet points that she hasn't brought to the table yet, which seems uncharacteristic for Tiffany.
My medicine has definitely worn off.
Well, I was reading, and
so some of the things that I was looking through was really the process of where a hop goes from, being initially crossbred to how do they get it to a point where they're going to start naming it and actually start mass producing it, getting it to a point where they're going to start offering it at a larger scale. And so there's a multitude of tests, but they test to make sure that it's resistant against various mildews and pests. They check the alpha and oil levels to verify that they're consistent. They check the potential yield amounts so that they can actually know if they're going to turn a profit on this. They want to make sure it's going to mature at the right time for the harvest. And then the last one was that they were checking to make sure it was going to be machine harvested, like if it was possible, which I thought was really interesting, because I can assure you no one is out there hand picking hops at this level. So
no, honestly, like that, just the fact that those are the main parameters that they are looking at just shows that these breeding companies are run by bigger companies, because they're like, you're not going to think about that kind of thing if it's a small farm that's just trying to create something really fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Which is just interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't, there's a portion of me that wants there to be a small farm in this game,
I mean, they do exist. It's
I
just,
know it's just local who you know, and it's probably
Right.
really expensive. So are you actually going to turn a profit from a mass produced, or not mass produced, but a beer at a brewery where you're trying to make a profit off of every glass? Like,
yeah, I mean,
from a business model, is it, you know?
right. And honestly, there's a company out of New Zealand called Freestyle Hops, which has kind of played into everything that we've talked about. They've built hype around their brand. They started out as a small farm and started like catering towards hazy IPA brewers, honestly. And now they've kind of become like, or at least for a little while, they were one of the most talked about hop suppliers out of New Zealand because they were releasing all of these crazy aromatic tropical hops that people wanted in their hazy IPAs. And a lot of the big names that are talked about in the world of hazy IPAs either have or are still using Freestyle.
Do you think, this is more of a personal question, but do you think there's any pitfall involved in pandering to such a, so when you pander to like the hazy IPA crowd, you're banking on the fact that that's going to be a long-standing beer style. Don't get me wrong, I think it will be in some capacity, but just like anything else,
Sure.
I think it'll die off eventually and ebb and flow eventually. Do you think there's any risk in the hop game of making something really crazy like that and building your name on it when potentially that style goes away and now you're super aromatic, crazy fruity, crazy, this just doesn't fucking matter anymore?
I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword, honestly. So at the end of the day, from a hop business perspective, obviously I've never owned or worked in the hop industry, but
Yeah, sure.
what I would imagine is that they're going to try to target to the breweries that use the most hops. And the breweries that use the most hops are the breweries that make IPAs. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And if hazy IPA goes away, the people are still going to want to use hops in some capacity. So regardless of what hazy IPA or what new thing comes to replace hazy IPA or be the next big thing in the world of hops.
All lagers.
I mean, West Coast Pilsner is a style that people are putting on labels now. And I mean, it's any brewery that has experimentality in their vision, then they're going to use these hops for other styles than just hazy IPA.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. Like we're seeing West Coasts that are in some cases juicier than hazies.
Right.
So it really just boils down to getting your name out there and like showing that you can create consistent quality product.
And yeah, I think that's the name of the game. I think if you can take whatever hop variation or anything else and you can make a consistent beer with it and a good beer with it, then who cares? Because other than some nerds like ourselves, if I drink a beer and it's good, I'm not necessarily going through the label going, the hell is this brewed with? I got to make sure this is in every beer I have.
Some people do.
Yeah, Untapped exists. Unfortunately for everyone.
I mean, I use it to track my beers, although not lately. I can't remember the last time I checked a beer in.
I check a beer in every day.
I only use it to check in on our stuff at the end of the day. That's
don't do it, Logan. It's a dangerous game.
It's just because it's interesting. I rarely make any real decisions on it, but it's interesting to see what people are saying. And honestly, we've had like random QA issues show up on Untapped. Like, oh, someone said this beer was off in some manner, and then we'll go back and like pull something from we keep an inventory of all of our beers that we've packaged for an extended period of time to see how they're aging. And we'll go and pull it. And it's like, oh, maybe this beer is aging out a lot different than we wanted it to. Sure. And sometimes, we'll have to take action on that, depending on what it is. But
it's good. You definitely don't want your brand.
Yeah. You don't want the name to go with a beer that's just aging differently.
Right.
So all that being said, what experimental shit are you doing in the future then? Now we done open up the wormhole. What mushroom beer are you making? I don't know.
Oh man. That's definitely in the works. I gotta convince Russ that Oozlefinch needs a mushroom beer.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be well. I'm 3 years in trying to do that, and he's still not going for it. So
I mean,
it's a hard sell.
If the people ask for
if the
it,
people yearn for it,
yes, everyone watching at home, ask Oozlefinch for a mushroom beer.
go blow up their page.
Email Russ.
Yeah, Russell at oozlefinchbeers.com. That is his real email.
Dangerous company. Dangerous
mushroom
company.
beer.
But yeah, I don't know.
Mushroom coffee. Why can't there be mushroom beer?
That's a good point. I mean, Jester King and plenty of other mixed fermentation breweries have done mushroom beers, and I mean they're hit or miss, personally, but I don't know. I would love to do it just to say I've done it and to experiment with it. It's like my two worlds coming together kind of thing.
I'm a fun guy. I'll try it. Nobody. I mean, it was gonna happen eventually. I'm surprised I waited this long.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
So no, but in all honesty, like what's coming up at Oozlefinch? What's coming up at Nost? Are you guys working on anything? You got any big events this summer? I mean, your location from a summer standpoint is always a big event because it's gorgeous. But anything specific coming up?
Yeah. So as far as like specifically with the beer, I'm always trying to experiment with experimental hops and hazy IPAs. I really love hazy IPAs at the end of the day. And I love making them and I love drinking them. So it just seems like a perfect marriage of those two things. Might as well just experiment with that kind of thing. But I'm also really into the idea of dry hopping mixed fermentation sours. It's not a new concept, but I really love it when it's done well. And I've only been able to make one dry hopped barrel aged sour since I've been there, but that's definitely something I'm interested in exploring some more, especially on the beers that have a little bit more of a balanced acidity, where it's not like rip the taste buds off your tongue, like a little bit more where you're able to experience the hops and what they're bringing to the beer. And that's something that I feel like was lacking on the dry hop sour that I made in the past. So there's that. And then as far as the brewery coming up with events, we have a Red Beer Festival on March 16th. That is actually the brainchild of Jack Ferris.
Where's Jack Ferris now? Is he going to be there?
He will be there. He will be there. He's currently asleep on his couch.
That checks out.
But yeah, he'll be there. A bunch of other industry friends will be there. Where we did a bunch of collaborations. We did one with Fine Creek, which is going to be a juniper farmhouse red. We did a red check lager with The Answer. We're doing a amber wheat with Big Ugly, which is now where Jack is. And 1700, we did a red IPA. So we'll have all of them out, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone, and I feel really bad about it. But anyway, we're going to be putting a bunch of stuff on our social media about that very soon, if we haven't already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing that we're really pushing right now. We're going to start doing a lot more music this year at the brewery as well. So we're hoping to bring more people out for that. I'm really into electronic music, so I'm actually going to be organizing some bass or electronic shows at the brewery, hopefully this summer. So
is that like a bring your own mushrooms event?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Got my drift?
I cannot control your life. You do what you want with it.
God, it's so nice to hear that. No.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Wow. Shots fired. You said yes, it's your fault.
I know. Logan, we're going to let you go in a second, man. I honestly, thank you so much for stopping by. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, whether it's actual beer or just shooting the shit somewhere outside of the brewery or in the brewery, it's always good to see you, man.
Likewise.
And looking forward to the Red Fest. I don't want to call it the Red Fest.
Just sounds like my period.
We're calling it Suds and Shenanigans if you need to call it something.
Thank you. If I need to have an actual name for it, Suds and Shenanigans sounds way better than Red Fest.
Sounds like a laundry.
I feel like I'm underselling this a bit. So we're going very hard for this. So we're actually calling it a Red Beard Fest. So we're buying a bunch of red beards for people to wear. In the right light, mine can get a little red sometimes. But I'm thinking about dyeing it bright red for this.
It's gold.
It's honestly, at the end of the day, Jack wanted this festival to be about community and bringing people, like-minded people together. And that's really what it is. We just want to like drink beer, appreciate good beer, and have a good time. And that's all it's going to be.
You know, I dig it. I'm easy to find in that platform.
Yeah, for sure.
A beard.
Crochet a beard for Tiffany.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I actually did make a crocheted beard once for like snowboarding. This was a very long time ago.
To keep your face warm?
Yeah, to keep your face warm because it's cold. But I don't snowboard anymore because I'm old.
This is true.
I'm not cool anymore. I'm not going
All
out
right.
there cool, sweet jumps.
That's all I got. I'm gonna let you say goodbye to Logan.
It's fine. Logan, it has been a pleasure. Please tell Jack and Dana I say goodbye as well.
I will.
No, they're somewhere.
They're waving and yelling bye.
Okay.
Hooray!
Go on. They're over there somewhere.
Well, cheers,
Yeah,
Logan.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much
again, man.
Yeah, thank you all.
We'll see you soon, bud.
Bye.
Till next time.
Later.
All right.
I always feel like I'm cheating when we have our friends on
I know.
because it's just easy to talk to and easy to hang out with.
It is.
Like I feel like there's no work involved
well,
in that.
I feel like we at least have to try to not make it feel like it's our friends and we're hanging out.
Okay, that's fair.
I feel
That's fair.
like for the most part, like we like try to keep it professional.
Okay. Well, in the vein
That's
of
what I keep telling myself.
in the vein of keeping it professional, would you like to try to close the show out?
I can.
All right, let's try it.
Thank you for joining us today. On
Wow,
Tuesday.
today.
No. For those of you who joined live or are watching afterwards, always appreciate the viewership. I'm going to be super social media for a second. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and also drink beer. If you want to go check out some cool merch, check out our website over here or all of our social medias across the bottom.
What is the website?
It's wishyouabeershow.com.
Perfect.
We will be here next week, Thursday,
Correct.
at 8 p.m. Eastern, just like we are every week. And I believe this next month we're going to be talking about malts. So stay tuned.
Not the liquor.
Yeah, not malt liquor.
We do a show on
that
malt
is
liquor. I'll see
kind
you
of
later.
A beer, though, isn't it?
Sure, love.
I don't know. I'm kind of sick. But yeah, so tune in. Stay tuned. Follow us on social.
I'm pushing the button.
Wait, just God. Okay, fine. All right. I mean, you can still hear me.
No,
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Don't say it again.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
God, you're so good at that.
I know. I was actually doing okay.
You're doing great.
Don't forget to take us out of the screen.
Really proud of you.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna leave us in.